Wait, they've made more than 3 bad games? Dragon Ball's been around since the Reagan administration. It was bound to whiff on a few of these things. It's that time again to talk about all things Dragon Ball, except for the good things about Dragon Ball. You know me, the hoodie and the birthmark should be enough to let you know I like Dragon Ball, but even that level of dedication doesn't blind me to how bad some Dragon Ball games can be. Yeah, don't let the 2 Dragon Ball Funko Pops I own fool you, I'm actually really smart. It's time for 3 more games that could give a run for its money. Like a fly in a spider's web, you've fallen for my trap once again. I suckered you in with the promise of 3 Dragon Ball games when it's actually 4 Dragon Ball games. Don't you look stupid? So when looking for the worst of the worst when it comes to Dragon Ball games, I knew the last 2 I wanted to cover, but the first game was tough to decide. There are 2 Dragon Ball games, similar in a lot of ways, that I couldn't really decide between. Both were PlayStation games released around the mid-90s that would end up coming stateside either way too early or way too late. Dragon Ball Final Bout and Ultimate Battle 22. The explosion of Dragon Ball's popularity in the West was unprecedented, coming at just the right time to give an unexposed market a glimpse at what anime was all about. It was uniquely positioned as the crown jewel of the brand new Toonami block, while still having an easy barrier for entry given its similarity to American comics. With massive success like that, merchandise was sure to follow, and Dragon Ball's initial merch output was just so confused. If you ever wanted to see how your dad would market Dragon Ball to you, check out these old ads. You can get activity sets, party supplies, board games. It even ends with a call to narc on anybody selling bootlegs. Dad, I'll clean my room. Just stop watching my anime. Oh no! Gohan's being bullied by Nappa and Raditz. It's up to Trunks, Sleeveless Goku, and Piccolo's mighty battle sword to save the day. Relive the fever-pitch battle between Super Vegito and Super 13. You couldn't have picked a worse guy. You want to know the best part? These were all released while the Frieza saga was airing. Will Goku become the legendary Super Saiyan? I don't know, let's ask Super Saiyan 3 Goku. That confusion extended to the game side as well. Dragon Ball games had come to America, but they had their fingerprints burned off so we couldn't track them. Final Bout was the first American Dragon Ball game to release with its identity intact, and was dropped in 1997. A funny thing about 1997, when this game was released in October of that year, the episode that would be airing alongside it would be Escape from Dodoria. American viewers had only just gotten to Namek, and were now getting a game based on Dragon Ball GT, a show that wouldn't air in America for another 6 years. Yes, if you include its maiden name, it's actually Dragon Ball GT Final Bout, a game based on the sequel series to Dragon Ball Z, which to someone who only just found out about Zarbon, looked a little weird. Why is Goku a kid? Why is Gohan older than his dad? Boo? Like Mario? Why does Frieza look like that? Super Saiyan 4? What happened to the other ones? I can only begin to guess why this game, out of all Dragon Ball games available, was the one they chose to port. It obviously had to be on the PlayStation to capitalize on its success, but why not Dragon Ball The Legend or Ultimate Battle 22? Well, the best guess is that being 3D gave it the edge. Kids want a Goku with vertices! Speaking of Ultimate Battle 22 though, that would end up releasing on the PlayStation a full 6 years later in 2003. A PlayStation game released in 2003 had a snowball's chance in heffel of doing much, but Funimation and Infogrames, the publisher, needed more Dragon Ball stuff to push. It was just as popular as ever, but they were starting to tap the vein dry on stuff to import. Unlike Final Bout, Ultimate Battle 22 actually has a pretty involved background, being released originally in Japan in 1995. It reviewed pretty well, enough to drop it off in Europe to see what happens, but the game came into its own in November of the same year when it was released on the Sega Saturn as Shin Butoden. This was a massively improved port, bringing back features from previous Butoden games like the split-screen system, detailed backgrounds, new modes like Mr. Satan mode, which let you bet on matches. Shin Butoden wasn't a world-changing game, but it was still a decent spit and shine of a bad game. And which do you think Americans got? Yes, the original release of Ultimate Battle 22 was released in 2003 for American markets, who wouldn't spare the urine to piss on it. Both Final Bout and Ultimate Battle 22 were hated by American critics when they came out. Final Bout at least has nostalgia on its side. Ultimate Battle 22 got it really bad, since this was a world that had seen Tekken's 1 through 3, all 3 Street Fighter Alphas, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and oh yeah, Dragon Ball Budokai. But which is worse? Well, that's what I hope to figure out. Get your Dragon Ball PlayStation 1 game comparison gloves out, everybody. I knew this was a good purchase. It's time to see which one comes out on top. You know the expression, harshly judge a book by its cover. Which one of these games has better visuals? With Final Bout, they went for a 3D style to take advantage of what the PS1 did best, vaguely resemble something. Well, that's either Cell or a cactus. I'll get back to you on that one. The models aren't half bad. In fact, they're pretty charming recreations with the blocky PS1 feel. They even have a few cute references built in, like Kid Buu and Frieza buffing up when they charge attacks, but that doesn't translate to very good animations. They're very jittery and jumpy. Nothing ever feels especially fluid. Backgrounds too aren't much to write home about, just a collection of different barren wastelands. It could be green, it could be gray, it could be brown, but no doubt it will be boring. But maybe boring is better than just out-and-out bad. Ultimate Battle 22 tries to emulate the anime by using sprites that look straight out of the show. When I first saw this, I thought it was a slam dunk win for Ultimate Battle 22, but the more you see the game in motion, you realize the problem. Animation costs money, and the modus operandi for ol' UB22 was to spend as little as possible. The sprites are really ugly in some cases. Characters like Deborah have this crusty and jagged shading that make them look really slapdashed, and the animations for attacks are really basic. Maybe a few frames on any given attacks, but it makes them look incredibly stiff. And the backgrounds are just so ugly. They're the part that's rendered in mind-blowing 3D, but in their haste to make it 3D, they forgot to put anything in them. The idea is there with how the sprites look, but even if it's primitive, Final Bout still manages to outshine it. You may have been wondering, what's all this stuff in my ears? Well, that's noise, and these games make it. Audio-wise, this may be the most even these two are ever gonna get. Final Bout has some standout songs, Biggest Fight, Super Saiyan 4 Goku's theme, but a majority of them lack the real Dragon Ball flair that I expect for a game like this to have. They sound way too much like generic battle themes from any given JRPG rather than Dragon Ball music. Ultimate Battle 22 actually manages to pull ahead with some super solid tracks. Gogeta's theme, Majin Buu's, Great Saiyaman, Kid Goku, they're all very, very good. It's also time for the mini category. Which one of these has the better version of Hikari no Willpower? It's the same method I used during election season. It's Trunks' theme across both games, and of the two, the Final Bout version is just a bit slower, and the lower quality sound clips used just make the Ultimate Battle version sound all the better, since it sticks closer to the original and has a lot more energy. Now, if we stopped it there, this would almost look competitive, but audio is so much more than just music. How's the voiceover? Well, for whatever reason, the cast of the Funimation dub wasn't brought in, and in their place were some big names before they were big. Steve Blum as Goku, Lex Lang as Gohan, Skip Strelreich as Trunks, Daniel Warren as Piccolo. These are really good actors who cannot deliver a line naturally to save their lives. The voice direction is so weird. Now, I don't blame anybody for looking at Frieza and having no idea what they should sound like, but there are quite a few where the direction is just head-scratching. On top of that, they only sprung for the pre- and post-fight voice lines, so as soon as the fight starts, it reverts back to the Japanese dub. Well, it's pretty spotty, but it exists. What does Ultimate Battle 22 have? Nothing. This is a look into a world where the Dragon Ball cast isn't on speaking terms. The game lacks any voice acting, just characters occasionally grunting when they get hit and the music in the background. Overall, it's hard to say which is better. Ultimate Battle has nicer music, but Final Bout has proper localization, as poor as it may be in some parts. I think what pushes it in Final Bout's favor is that Ultimate Battle could have fixed its problems, but didn't. In the original Japanese version, there were cutscenes between the characters to start out the rounds that were fully voiced, instead of trying, though. They just hacked them out entirely in favor of the bare minimum. Better to pass in sloppy work than no work at all. It may be by just a hair, but I'm giving it to Final Bout. Alright, this is the major determining factor as to whether or not Ultimate Battle 22 gets to leave with its dignity. Final Bout has an arcade mode, a tournament mode, and power-up mode, which I tried playing and then got hit 3 times and died. Alright, bad neighborhood, not buying a house here. For arcade mode, I picked Kid Boo, since he's my favorite and also the funniest. Look at this bubblegum goblin, I couldn't not pick him. Seems like the game thought the same thing. The combat is absolute trash in this game. Characters feel incredibly sluggish, moves are delayed and awkward to perform, and super moves are just a myth. There's no way to check what moves you do have in-game. You have to waste a lot of time charging up ki to actually try to fire those super attacks, and if you use too much, you get staggered for so long without ever getting any ki back. This game has like 5 different mechanics that it just refuses to explain. You can block super attacks with an aura shield. You can get into beam struggles. You can fly. You can do a meteor attack to combo your opponent without a chance for them to fight back. And where does it tell you all this? On the game facts page. This game is so awkward to control that you never get a sense that you're actually controlling the character, more that you just suggest a direction for them to move. At the end of a fight, you never get the sense that you won. Instead, it's just the computer stopped attacking long enough for you to do this. The computer as well is just annoying to fight, since it can use all the stuff that you can't no problem, countering every super move with their own when they're not just flat out nullifying the damage. Look how much fun Goku gets to have. Sure do wish I could be hitting my opponent. The arcade mode rounds out with a fight against... no one can introduce him better than himself.
You were too overconfident. Let me show you to your defeat!
Other buttons exist, but when kicking him does this, it's hard to make a case for anything else. That was the first time I've ever fought this boss. After that is roll credits on a sluggish, unfun, unfair, boring fighting game. So imagine how bad Ultimate Battle 22 has to be to lose to it. Ultimate Battle 22 has all the same modes as Final Bout, so it's not earning any points there. The main difference is how in Ultimate Battle 22 controls even worse. The characters are even more stiff and unwieldy than before, moves have so much starting and ending lag that missing a basic attack leads to a horrible punish, and that's on top of the fact that the game keeps the fatigue mechanic from Final Bout, where running low on ki means that you're left helpless. I tried arcade mode, but my first match was against Goku's crotch spawn, who's too small to be hit by any of the characters I picked. Deborah, Raycoom, Super Boo, even a short character like Supreme Kai couldn't touch him. The AI in this game is so much more prone to spamming one move over and over again, so Goten just kept using his charge move that doesn't take up any ki and hits you with sterling accuracy. It wasn't until I swapped over to Vegeta that I finally got past the first fighter in arcade mode and got to experience the rest, which wasn't worth experiencing. The clunky controls were much worse than they were in Final Bout, and ultimately, I couldn't even bring myself to finish a single run-through of arcade mode. I quit after 4 characters, and knowing there were about 18 ahead was not something I was keen on trying. So that brings the total scores up to... Okay, don't let this convince you that Final Bout is good. That 3 is about the highest mark I could give it. It just so happens that Ultimate Battle 22 is a great measure worse than a bad game like Final Bout. They're both absolute garbage fighting games, not worth the discs they're printed on, but with Final Bout, yeah, if you have nostalgia for the game or can put up with the jank of an early PS1 fighting game, not the worst thing ever. I had a small amount of fun with it, and like I said, the graphics are pretty charming recreations of Dragon Ball, something Ultimate Battle 22 can't really claim. Speak of the Videl, is Ultimate Battle 22 worse than Taiketsu? No. Like, it's absolute garbage, but Taiketsu is trash while looking the part. At least Ultimate Battle 22 tries to dress itself in the morning. Besides, Hikari no Willpower on its own is worth more than anything Taiketsu has, so it can still claim to be the second worst Dragon Ball fighting game. I don't count Ultimate Tenkaichi as a fighting game, I count it as dog shit. If you want to talk about the worst of the worst with Dragon Ball, though, it's not a game you're looking for, it's a movie. Dragon Ball Evolution is the most high-profile live-action anime adaptation, and that high profile meant it had a long way to fall. Starting production all the way back in 2002, the history of a live-action Dragon Ball film spans back even further. Of course, there was the 1991 Chinese movie Dragon Ball The Magic Begins, but at that rate you could say that me hitting my action figures together was the first ever live-action adaptation. Talks began in 1995 with Jackie Chan himself floating the idea before admitting it would take too much money and require a lot of special effects. I hate so much that I have to know that Prime, Rumble in the Bronx Jackie Chan could have been Goku, and he wasn't. Talks would die down until 2002, when Fox acquired the rights to make a Dragon Ball film, a prospect that they would terrorize the general public with for the next several years as they tried to find a director. Robert Rodriguez, Zack Snyder, even Marchese Depay were asked, but all said no. You may be wondering, though, who is Marchese Depay? Well, he's the director of, and don't laugh at this next part, Garfield Gets Real, Garfield's Fun Fest, and Garfield's Pet Force. The first name they asked, though, was the most interesting, Stephen Chow. Kung Fu Hustle is one of the greatest films ever made, and we could have gotten the guy who directed that to direct Dragon Ball, and I hate everything and I want to go home! Steven would stay on as a producer, though, which meant diddly dick in the long run, as the director would be James Wong, and you may be wondering, who is James Wong? Don't ask, he didn't direct any Garfield movies. If you know him from anything, it's probably the X-Files episodes he's directed, the first and third Final Destination films, and the Jet Li movie The One, which has a lot of new metal in it, so it probably wouldn't be so bad that it forces Akira Toriyama out of retirement out of spite. The film was cursed at every single turn, with a budget of $100 million hacked down to a mere $30 million to save money. The cast was essentially lied to about what the movie was going to be and who was going to be in charge, with $100 million and Stephen Chow being replaced with an unair-conditioned abandoned jeans factory in Durango, Mexico. That cast, by the way, is the last group that needs to be blamed for this. Justin Chatwick, who is as white as the day is long, tried his hardest to prepare to play Goku, reading the whole of the original manga and Journey to the West to prepare. James Marster was a huge Dragon Ball fan who pushed to make Piccolo look as close to the original as possible. There were people who wanted to make something good, it was just impossible given the circumstances. The movie would come out in 2009 and tanked, making $59 million off a $30 million budget. Don't think about it too hard, Hollywood budgets are weird. The film has a passing resemblance to Dragon Ball at the best of times, and I'm happy to report, after watching it again after all these years, it is not a hidden gem! We don't have to live under the threat of a YouTube video titled, "We need to talk about this forgotten classic." It's just terrible! A terrible movie with a tie-in game. Despite all the odds, Dragon Ball Evolution got a game on the PSP the same year it was released. Developed by longtime Dragon Ball developers Dimps, Evolution would get absolutely mauled by critics, probably off the back of the movie's poor performance, but nonetheless it was called repetitive, samey, and a complete waste. One of the worst PSP games ever made. I'm really excited to start playing. When you start it up, you have a few different options, but the main draw is story mode. If you've ever been wondering, what is the plot of Dragon Ball Evolution while on a long car ride while everybody else's phone is dead, this game couldn't have come at a better time. Story mode takes you scene by scene through the movie, starting off with the fight against Grandpa Gohan. Fight starts and whoa, hey! What was that? It was fast and engaging. It was fun and controlled well. Where do you get off thinking you can do that? So for those that can't see the family resemblance, Dragon Ball Evolution is a new version of the Shin Budokai games, which were also on PSP. That means it has the same combat system, and the Shin Budokai games have a great combat system. You have light and heavy attacks you can string together, but also just mash either for an auto combo. You have a special move button that changes depending on what direction you're holding. You even have cinematic level 3s. Going into training mode reveals intricate combo strings for every character, and it's not hard to put cool moves together. Along with that is a system where you can use ki to augment some of your moves, like guards and dashes. It all comes together to make a system that is way better than this game deserves. Even if the shell surrounding it is terrible, the core gameplay is still great. Luckily, the game gets what it deserves when you see what makes up the rest of story mode. These cutscenes recapping the story of the movie go on forever, with these really awkward-looking portraits of the cast all you get to break it up. Between the first and second fights in story mode, there's 10 minutes of Goku's high school adventures, and it feels terrible for the game to show you how fun it can be, and then go, no, we had to copy and paste the script into a text document, and now you're gonna read it. Don't worry though, they knew there were some problems and decided to punch up the script a little bit. To the guy who keeps commenting, "What's Chi-Chi's last name?" your question will finally be answered. It's Roberts. Oh, Mr. Roberts, what will you name your new daughter? I think I'm gonna name her after Japanese boobies. Oh, but that's not a patch on Bulma Enchanto. It takes real work to make Briefs the less embarrassing surname. Like I said, it takes you through the whole plot of the movie, which means you rarely ever get to play as anybody other than Goku. You fight a few different characters, but mostly just Piccolo, all the way up until the ending. That ending, though, is pretty great, since they tried being cute and let you fight Chi-Chi over the credits just like how the movie ended. They didn't quite see how deep my cruelty goes, though, since I just kept spamming Kamehamehas. This is the most fun I've had all game. There isn't much to say about the experience, which sadly goes for a lot of modes. Mission mode is boring, network battles, I don't see that happening anytime soon, which leaves arcade mode as my only option. Look at me. Look at me. You know I'm going to pick Fu Lum because who is Fu Lum? I had to check. It's the Power Ranger putties that Piccolo makes out of his blood in the movie. Anybody here want a Fu Lum action figure? Want to recreate your favorite Fu Lum moments? I'm going to delete every single comment that does not start, end, or awkwardly shove in the middle hashtag Fu Lum moments. I probably won't enforce that. Fuck, I got sidetracked. Fu Lum wants to be a real boy and is gonna kill as many people as it takes to make it happen. I can see there were some fellow Fu Lum fanatics working on the game since he has a lot of cool animations where his arms turn into swords. In fact, it started getting a little suspect just how unique Fu Lum's animations were. I mean, my name wasn't anywhere in the credits, so clearly no true Blue Fu fans worked on this game, so I decided to cross-reference and saw that a ton of his animations were copied over from Janemba. If I had to guess, because I don't feel like checking with all the characters, most of the animations are probably recycled. Imagine if you got told you were making a Dragon Ball Evolution game, would you bust out your top shelf material? It's really not that bad for the most part. It's a weird case where the gameplay is fine, but looking at it is such a bore that I don't even want to try. That is, until you get to the fight with Mai, and then you realize, oh no, this actually is a terrible game, because the further you get into arcade mode, the more unreasonable the difficulty becomes. Maybe Fu Lum is a bad character. I'm positive nobody's bothered to check, but this fight with Mai is a nightmare. She vanishes behind every attack you try and hit her with, has a million projectiles to keep you away, and worst of all, deals way too much damage. Here's how much damage Fu Lum's level 3 does. Okay, now just try to keep up with how much damage Mai's does. That was while blocking. It took half an hour to try to get past Mai, and the fights that come after it against Roshi and Chi-Chi are just like it. I tried giving the game the benefit of the doubt because it was fun to play, but this left a massive sour taste in my mouth. At the end of every fight too, you get points, which at first was more than enough for me, but it turns out the game has a shop where you can purchase things like set photos and storyboards for the movie itself. If anybody in the audience needs a picture of a guy to claim as your uncle, this is a pretty good one. Honestly though, I do find this sort of stuff interesting. Now you can unlock the whole movie in picture book form, though it does cost 900 points for each sheet, and I only got 9,000 for beating story mode, so get comfy! Well, it took me a year, but I finally unlocked all the storyboards. Oh, the movie's still bad. So really, this isn't one of the worst Dragon Ball games. It's nothing special, but it's nothing worth really getting upset over. I will say that it has zero reason to exist. Unless you have a bully that keeps breaking your UMDs of Shin Budokai and Another Road, those games capture the spirit of Dragon Ball 10 times better than this game ever could. So it's really like there were actually only 3 of the worst Dragon Ball games in this video after all. Oh, dang it, I told the truth! I hate it when I do that! Dragon Ball Z for Connect. Transitions, like eggs, are hard. 2012 was one of the worst times to be a Dragon Ball fan. Battle of Gods was still a year out from release, and we were completely tapped. Dragon Ball Z Kai technically counts as something new, but it was the same thing we had been getting for years, which was the same thing. Dragon Ball had gotten stagnant for longtime fans, and we needed something new, or we were gonna go the way of the Yu Yu Hakusho fan. Thankfully, desperation breeds innovation, and Bandai Namco knew exactly what to give us. In October of 2012, we got Dragon Ball Z for Connect. I could think of worse combinations, but Ammonia and Bleach aren't here to defend themselves, so I'll stop. Dragon Ball Z for Connect was sold as a way for the average fan to finally live out their fantasy of fighting alongside Goku. I mean, they really pushed After Effects to its limits with this trailer. If I wasn't sitting in a chair and miserable, I'd have thought I was right in the action. Now, clearly this guy is having the time of his life, but I want to call attention to the fact that they can't hide the unpaid intern who actually had to play the game. I like the parts where he can't even be bothered anymore and the game plays itself out of mercy. Now, this is the part where you politely pretend that you wanted to hear about the development history of Dragon Ball Z for Connect, but this game is an absolute mystery. Almost nothing on the internet exists about this game. There are reviews, but that's it. No demonstrations, no interviews, no development history, nothing. This game was developed in the shame of the dark and then tossed into an alleyway so nobody knew who made it. I mean, Namco was so disgusted they left Bandai to take the fall all on their own. There's nothing left to do but play the game. But whoopsie daisy, you need a Connect to play it. Should have made that more obvious, really. Well, we're turning in early today, kiddos. See you next week for, I don't know, Gundam is anime, right? Does Godzilla count as anime? I think some Transformers shows were animated in Japan. It's pretty much the same thing. Don't acknowledge he's there, you're giving him more power. Starting out the game puts you in the main menu, where you get a bunch of boring bullshit that's never getting picked, story mode, and special movie mode. Aw, boy, we're gonna figure out where babies come from! Actually, it's just episode of Bardock. You sure this thing can't teach me what a placenta is? Such a weird special, about 30 minutes of admittedly pretty animation telling one of the worst stories Dragon Ball's ever told. The original Bardock Father of Goku special is one of the best things to ever come out of Dragon Ball, a story that Akira Toriyama himself admitted he would have never written, and episode of Bardock seeks to undo as much good as it possibly can. Bardock eats people in the last special, and this time around he's making friends and saving villages. It's nothing like he was before, and kinda lessens the impact of the original special, disregarding the fact that the death ball that kills him sent him back in time. I'm not gonna try to deny that Super Saiyan Bardock is cool, because obviously it is, but when the trigger for it is a random alien he just met dying, it feels so unearned and lame. He cared more about this thing than he did for his entire race. Shows how much they valued it when they didn't even bother dubbing it. So we're starting at a low. That just means that there's nowhere else to go but up. Wait, how many directions are there? Dragon Ball Z for Connect may be familiar to anybody who's seen True Terror, because it looks a heck of a lot like Ultimate Tenkaichi. If it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, shoot it. The game uses the exact same engine as Ultimate Tenkaichi, as well as its graphics, presentation, and stink. This reeks of laziness. The most basic port you could possibly try to pass off as something new. At least the other games tried to add something. This is FIFA levels of recycling. And since the story mode has a bunch of cutscenes, that means they're using the ones from Ultimate Tenkaichi, which are the same cutscenes from Raging Blast. This includes the same problem from those games as well, since the voice cast still hasn't been updated across the entire game to replace the old ones.
Do you have a new attack you've been saving for a time like this?
Well, not really.
You lazy fool.
Speaking of that story mode, it extends all the way through the Buu saga and has you fighting it out in the same battles you just went through in Ultimate Tenkaichi, except this time it's up to you. The game is controlled by punching. No other commands, just punch in. When you're up close, you punch. When you're far away, you punch to fire ki blasts. When you're chasing an opponent, you punch to hit them. When you're in a beam struggle, you punch to fight back. This game has nothing else except rapid punching. Now, I find Ultimate Tenkaichi about as appealing as Rusty Metal, but give it one thing, and only one, or it will take more, it had 4 animations for when you ended a combo string. This game knocks it down to just one. The only thing in this game that could trick somebody into getting excited, the combo system, is reduced down to a single animation replayed over and over ad nauseum until you can't take it anymore. And this game really hurts to play. You've got to swing your arms around like mad for the game to register what you're doing, and throwing punches at nothing is a really quick way to royally mess up your shoulder. Now, I don't like to brag about it, but I do fitness boxing. Can you tell? Oh, right, no you can't. But at least with that, punching at the air has structure. You're not meant to just flail angrily like a turbine in high winds. Here, though, the only thing that matters is that you're throwing the punch as quick as you can, so you're wearing out your shoulder after minutes upon minutes of doing this. But the game does have variety, yeah, just like Ultimate Tenkaichi let you fight it out in intense rock, paper, scissors games, or turn off the console, this one lets you fight it out in battles against giant characters. Giant character. It's just Vegeta. It's the exact same fight as it was in the last game, just instead of doing quick time events, you have to jump around your room like a moron. Luckily, this little scouter in the corner captures all your movements, which is great news for me since I get to try my best to make something of this. There are some especially weird prompts, like asking you to run in place, which I don't really think the Kinect understands. The Kinect doesn't understand a lot of things, like how to love, but the thing it has the most problem with is charging. To charge your ki, you gotta pop a quick squat with your arms out at your side, but I swear the game cannot read this. I think my leg placement was the problem, but I'm trying as hard as I can, and all I have to show for it is this tiny bit of energy, and you gotta fill up the whole thing if you want to throw a Kamehameha. No punching to get ki back like any other worthwhile Dragon Ball game, you gotta park yourself in place and try to get whatever you can. When you do manage to get the necessary ki, you get the small amount of charm this game has in recreating special moves. I'm not made of stone, I'll throw a pretend Kamehameha like anybody else, but when this is the game you have to play to do it, I'll let you in on a secret. You can pretend to do a Kamehameha whenever you want. It's free and the cops can't stop you. My breaking point was the first fight with Final Form Frieza. Check this out. His health actually hits 0, but he just decides to keep fighting anyway. This is all the entire game is, and it's nothing. It's the worst thing something can be, just nothing. Just a void where something should be. That's all that's on this disc. Most Kinect games are generous enough to include a couple of mini-games to try to distract you from the price tag, but Dragon Ball Z for Kinect is just the most shallow game I've ever played. Not like other games where you just mash a button the whole way through, this one has you doing just one action, unchanging for the entire thing. You unlock new characters throughout story mode, in batch by the way, because they knew forcing you to jump through hoops to unlock Jace was insulting, but what does that change? The pair of arms that shows up when you throw punches. Dragon Ball has so many different opportunities for creative minigames that this game just doesn't do because that would require any amount of thought to go into its development. Also, and this isn't really a problem with the game, but fuck it anyway, what is wrong with this game and my capture card? This weird glitching wasn't in the original game, and it's the only game I've ever recorded where it happens. Dragon Ball Z for Kinect is a minigame compilation that gave up on making minigames after the first one. As a Kinect game, it does as little as it can to skate by. You move, and that's where the integration ends. As a Dragon Ball game, it's nothing more than a loveless skin suit that tries to lure you in with the promise of Reikum, and fails to deliver even the most basic experience after that. It's laughably simple, to the point of being outshined by some tech demos, trying to entice people in with QR codes for stronger characters that are ultimately meaningless, and leaves the player more physically drained than it has any right to. As an attempt at a game, it is miserable. As a kitsch artifact of a time where game companies were obsessed with waggling body parts, it doesn't even come close to the jankiness of other Kinect games like Steel Battalion or Sonic Free Riders. Those games have aspects to them that are either genuine attempts to make something that functions, or have aspects to them that are genuine attempts to make something function but fail miserably. Dragon Ball Z for Kinect couldn't even have the decency to fail in an entertaining way. Instead of falling down the stairs, it gets its head caught in the guardrail and dies on impact. And it still clears Ultimate Tenkaichi by a mile. Physical damage is one thing, but emotional damage caused by that game is way worse, and I can't stretch that out.
Toda la fuerza brille. impossible.